We made it.
Welcome.
Wait, hang on. Live from the epicenter. We're here. Aren't you a little short to be a stormtrooper?
Hey, Wangy.
Okay, we're here. Hang on a second. Wait. I have to take your temperature, Carlos. Okay, you're good. Hang on. BRB. You can do a little intro.
Well, folks, you know what? I was going to read Futura's bio, but you know what? I think it's going to unfold as we speak today. So I will keep it to that. As you all know, he is an iconic graffiti artist who started in the early 70s and really rose to fame in the early 80s. And just blew the hell up in the 2000s all over again. Welcome, Futura.
Okay, sorry about that. We're having a little, this is all happening in real time.
That's right.
Thanks for having me, Carlos. Great to see you.
Yes, and Lenny, I'll need to see your head, so maybe if you can prop yourself up a little.
Stool. I have a stool that's actually much better.
Put a pillow under your butt.
Yeah, no, I got this. Here we are. I have some props also. At some point, we could bust out the props. But here we are.
I'm excited, and thank you, Lenny, for joining us here at the Museum of Graffiti's Daily Art Talk. And
yeah, they've been great. Shout out to what you've been doing. And I saw Chris Ellis, such an insightful conversation you guys had, and he's just such a wonderful human being.
Yeah, that was a moving talk for me. I miss New York. But that said, I want to jump into this talk in an unusual fashion with you, because I really wanted to focus about your career as a designer.
Okay.
Right? And we are going to talk some of your early graffiti stuff, but I want to go way, way back, and I want to be able to kind of give context to the conversation as to the world you grew up in through the 60s and the imagery you were seeing and how that would influence your name. So let's start with this image.
The Ford Futura.
Yes.
Probably 61, 2, 3-ish, maybe 4, but early 60s, what we would call the Kennedy era. But yeah, I love the car. I love the name. I mean, obviously, I stole it. But yes, that's one of the earliest Futuras I ever heard of.
And in that period, one of the things that was really interesting coming off the 50s, where advertising and design and the idea of the future, right? What we were thinking about for the future through design and, of course, through space exploration, that would come to have an influence on you, wouldn't it?
Yeah, because, I mean, just not even the missions leading up to the landing on the moon, 1969, I would have been 14. Think about it now. If you're a 14-year-old kid and you're seeing that happening in your lifetime and, black and white images, hey, is it a conspiracy? To be honest with you, my mother thought it was, which was kind of crazy, yeah. But whatever. But yes, I loved it. I love sci-fi. The whole idea of science fiction comes out of the post-nuclear era of the 40s and what people imagined the influences of that exposure would do on animals and, whatever. But yes, I come from that. I loved that as a child. And NASA was quite honestly the most, sophisticated operation on the planet. Plus they had the really amazing graphics. And
yes. Did you know, by the way, this is a little tidbit for folks, that Futura did go to the moon? The typeface.
You told me that, yes.
Yeah.
So NASA was using Futura typeface.
Nice. But another thing that was influencing you was film. And specifically Stanley Kubrick's 2001.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
What was it about that film?
Yeah, so that's a year before. That's actually 1968. And that was epic for me because, once again, I was
Oh, no, you dropped out.
50 years into the future, or 40 rather. No, my math's all screwed up. I'm too old. But yeah, I mean, it was amazing. And I love Stan Lee, rest in peace. He was amazing visionary in terms of what he did in film. And that helped me a lot. You know, obviously, Futura 2000 is born from the Ford Futura and the Kubrick film.
But another thing that was very seminal in your life was going to the Navy, right? You were a merchant marine.
No, I was a U.S. I was regular Navy. Merchant Marine's like just a occupational sailor that goes on the,
got it.
You know, freight carriers have merchant sailors or merchant marines. Now I was legitimate Navy, but yeah, that was an amazing. You know, 18 to 22. So once again, I'm quite young, naive, but also very open. You know, I've always said I am a sponge. You know, I like to absorb things around me and hopefully learn from those experiences. But the Navy was crucial, not just in growing up, in a sense. You know, it was my education in life rather than in, you know, education in academics. But, you know, I came back at 22 before any of this introduction to what we'll speak about even begins. But I had a sensibility, you know, on many levels. You know, I could think on multiple levels, which helped a lot.
Yeah, and what's really interesting, and people should know this, is how this would come to influence so much of your design, particularly with communication design, and of course, you know, fashion design with all the camel work you've done over the years. And so I want to go back to the early years, to the young Futura.
Ooh, ouch.
And we found this drawing, and it's interesting. What was the attraction to graffiti for you? What brought you into it?
Well, you know, prior to the military experience, I had the Soul Artist group with my friend Mark Edmonds, AKA Ali. And that's around 1970, 71. You know, that's when we started thinking like, hey, could we do this? Props to, you know, every existing previous graffiti writer, from Taki to UGA to, you know, everybody, you know, and those were the artists that motivated us to want to follow and want to be and start our own thing. And the essay was that. So we were graffiti writers before I went in the military, although not on any epic level, not on, you know, we weren't kings of anything. We were simply participants in something that we thought was interesting. And, you know, Mark was very intelligent, and I was kind of following his lead. You know, at that time in my life, I was like a second lieutenant. You know, I just used to like marry up with people who I felt were a little smarter than me and provided good leadership. And I would just help, you know, just be your co-pilot as best I can, or a navigator, or whatever secondary function, you know, I could provide.
Well, one of the reasons I chose this image is to pull that story from you, but also to take notice of your signature.
Yeah.
How distinct your signature was back then, and how
very aspirational.
Yeah, and we're going to see how this signature evolves over time, because come the 80s.
Yeah, this is post-military, post that first, you know, my Futura arrows, the original tag. And of course, Carlos, you know this. I mean, I come from I'm a graffiti writer in historical context. You know, I'm not a graffiti artist, although I became one. I'm not a street artist, although I could be. You know, am I an artist? That's up to interpretation. You know, I'm just me. So along the way, I tried to just adapt and evolve, which I think, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, in fact, I think that's how it should be.
Yeah, and you know what? Let's just kind of pause for a second, because I really want to know about the 2000, right? Mm-hmm. Adding the 2000, what was the significance of that?
Well, not only is it the, you know, looking ahead, you know, because it's from the origins, it would be 30 years in the future. Also, something I never really thought I would live to see the year 2000. You know, when I was 15, 16, you know, I had a short life expectation in theory, you know, because even if you will, dying young and having done something, however insignificant, didn't seem like a bad thing, because life was rough. Even in the late 60s, you know, I mean, life's rough today, man, worse than ever. So at any moment in your life, you know, I don't know, certainly young people have lesser expectation of it, you know, which is why I guess they enjoy it in the moment. Me now, I just look at it like, wow, life is getting shorter for me, although I reject, you know, the aging, you know, we were talking about living previous lives in another conversation we had about, you know, in 1,000 years ago, whenever, I don't know, 500 years ago, when I was someone else, I was living another entity as an energy. I may have tapped into the fountain of youth, and I'm grateful, you know, because I feel great. I'm healthy in the midst of, you know, the worst fucking pandemic, but yet, you know, I got a good immune system apparently, and my life history has shown me that I've always had in medical whatevers, you know, like I'm not an unhealthy person, you know.
Right.
So
and speaking about your history, if I can, is bringing it back to your development in terms as a style writer, because these two examples that I have here are interesting in terms that there is some emphasis on the lettering and the name, but a stronger emphasis in painting. And this is where we really start seeing your process starting to take shape.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, it's crazy. We're reminiscing over imagery, and I look at it, and yes, perhaps at the time, okay, if you want to look at that top and bottom, that's like summer of '82 or something. So it's more or less like, for me, I look at it now, and I wanna cringe on certain levels, but you know, I guess for the moment, I was there doing the best I could to not even innovate, but experiment. You know, I've always said, there it is, boom, the biggest accident in my life.
But when you want to talk about innovation, the brake train was one of the most innovative trains ever painted, possibly, and influential trains. Tell us about this.
Well, you know, I can tell you something, Carlos, about it, and thanks to Don D, rest in peace, Don D. White, you know, Style Master General extraordinaire, and a really great friend, and, you know, neighbor, fellow cyclist. I mean, me and Dondi, and Zeph, you know, we ran a Three Musketeers program for a few years there. We kind of killed it. You know, really like the heart of the exposure era, you know, 81 to 84, just destroyed those 3 years. And I heard even Days say there was a concentrated era, you know, which was the early 80s, so much happening, you know, on all kinds of levels. But the brake train, I consider, you know, really what we're looking at is a photograph of Martha Cooper, who shouldn't be, you know, discredited in any fashion, because without that photograph, how can we be having this conversation?
Exactly.
And then how could even other people who came after me, in any sense, oh shit, that's interesting, let me try that. Oh wow, you know, I don't know the story behind it. Oh, he can't paint. However, people, you know, reacted to it, to me was insignificant, because once again, like, I don't want to say I didn't know what I was doing. I was conscious I was going to do something that wasn't done, okay, in the sense of the abandoning, pardon me, of the letter and the traditions. You know, Break is not Curtis Blow. I like Curtis Blow. He was dope, but it's not homage to Curtis Blow. I've seen that written, and that's totally incorrect. It's a break of tradition. It's me breaking with, I don't know, you know, what I was feeling at the moment. And at the same time, I'm out of here. You know, it's also like, this is it. Because now look what's happening. Boom, here you go. The end of that year. This is now all happening in 1980. This is fucking 40 years ago. We're getting exposure in the Village Voice. Okay, it's local, rag, whatever, but very, you know, well read by people in New York. And suddenly graffiti was getting this kind of recognition. Everybody's hiding their faces. I was like, fuck it. Who cares? You know, you're going to get me on something I did previously. You can't do that. There's a smoking gun, you know, principle. You got to catch me in the act. And subsequent to my crimes, well, I'm not going to commit any more crimes. I'm trying to legitimize myself now. So, yeah, people were like, wow, that's crazy. And
well,
yeah,
and if I can what I can interject on that point is that was a really important article for all of us in terms, I mean, so much was going on.
Yes, it was.
We were questioning our,
I mean, me and your brother,
legitimacy,
you know, Randy.
Yep.
No, I don't want to cut you off, Mayor, but let me mention Randy and you know, your brother Kel, 139, who was instrumental in helping me also elevate, you know, whatever subway game I had, which at this time was really, I don't want to say minimal, but, you know, that wasn't really my motivation. My motivation was more communication and evolution. Once again, I was trying to get out of all that, because I used to look at myself and I'd say, wow, man, I'm almost 20. I'm 25. You know, what am I doing? Why am I in the subway tunnel? So trying to just evolve. And what I've said before is what happened with that article, and for all of us as well, as you mentioned, we all were elevated to some degree. Even if it was short-lived, we were elevated beyond just, oh, look at the kids, you know, they're vandals, they destroy public property.
Exactly. And these two tear sheets are interesting because one's from the Daily News where you designed the graphics for it that says graffiti, and underneath it, it says, is the art world ready for it? And that's 1981. And that's some of us over at Soul Artists, myself and Ali's in there, and Crime.
Days is in there.
And Days. And
yep.
Then the one next to it is the People magazine, and the heading there is, when graffiti paintings sell for thousands, the art world sees the writing on the wall. What a moment of inflection for us. Like, wow, are we getting legitimate? Are we going to be accepted into these places that we would always shun from? What were you thinking when all this was happening?
Well, you know, I like to play chess. So I think two things immediately. One, oh, wow, that sounds amazing. Two, oh, damn, that sounds like the death knell. Because once money came into the picture, and then everybody was suddenly motivated by another thing, and you know, it's like basic, you know, economics, then people gravitated to, well, how can I make money? How can I, you know, and then that's when you got to determine, like, well, I mean, come on, we all have to make money, obviously, but it was a way that I could sense that even when you see, it's like anything else, like once you start getting articles written about you, whatever they're talking about is probably passé. And maybe I was already feeling like, wow, not overexposure, not yet. That was wonderful, I guess, because we're still a little bit naive, but I was always a little bit uncertain, you know, because I couldn't see us having the fundamental base, the bottom of the whole movement, you know, because we're 100 different individuals running around doing our thing. Yes, we met in these events and openings, and everyone shared, oh, wow, look at you, well, yo, sign my book. But collectively, we were weak in terms of our power because we just didn't have the skills. Now, fortunately, that culture we're speaking about, the early, I mean, what you're talking about, did I make thousands? I don't know. Not really, because what happened is, yeah, you sell a painting for 5,000, okay, 50-50, okay, material cost, okay, I got a check for what, $680? So the whole thing at the time was a little bit deflating, and I was already trying to see a way out that wasn't so, I don't know, insecure.
Correct. And one of the things that, please.
Like a real job, you know, like pondering, hey, do I get out of this shit and get a real job? For example.
Right. And I remember you were talking that you were working at Kinko's at one point, and regardless of that, you were still pushing to innovate. And the reason I chose this early painting is because
I love that piece.
Yes. Now we start seeing the language start to develop, right? The futuristic or Futura language. At this moment, you were painting in a way that no one else was painting in terms of controlling air pressure, the speed of painting as well.
Yeah, I mean, you know, this painting from the project I did with Eric Hayes, Andy Zeff, you know, we were all in on that project together. It's something for the Juvenile Diabetes Foundation, and something I just thought about right now, Carlos, is that triangle. If I'm going to search now the logo for the Juvenile Diabetes Foundation, I think they had a triangle type logo, you know, like a patching or some sort of a, you know, their branding, and maybe that was a subtle shout out to that. But yeah, that's like my first robotic dude. He's holding a spray can in his hand, in his right hand. I mean, it was something I did a lot later, you know, like I used to call him home spray, and home, you know, hey, yo, homeboy, home spray. But he'd been, I mean, he was a piece that caught the eye of some other people down the line and stuff. So that's the beginnings of it. But yeah, that's 82. So it was beginning to take form.
Right, and we could see this in the next sequence of paintings here. Like, I don't know what the bottom one is, but you see that you're deviating from, you know, the traditional letter forms and focusing on painting.
Well, the top piece is a piece from a fun gallery show, you know, totally abstractions and lines and, you know, gleamers and shit, whatever, you know, whatever we used to call them, as Scene would call them. But the bottom one is a Futura piece. FUT, the U is the character the R is just there's maybe, and then there's an A, which is a triangle. So that was an early Futura piece I was coming up with. And the DJ has some turntables. So that's a very, original thing. And then the home spray guy has taken a little bit more form on the left. But, all that early stuff, this early 80s for me is Geiger driven. Okay, I blabbed that out before that. Geiger's late 70s. So the alien character, the orbital heads, oblong heads, what have you, that was kind of an influence. Wow, now this is the Clash tour. This is 81, 82-ish.
This was very important, this painting. Most recently, it was used for the Virgil Abloh collab, wasn't it?
Yes, actually, fantastic idea that Virgil had to incorporate this into something, beyond my expectation as far as the piece that they did make. And someone had mentioned, shout out to A-Side, like, wow, look at that thing moving. It's like a train. It's like a piece of art. And we don't think of it that way, but yes, it made me think like, art. That's why painting trains was amazing. And that moment I had with Break and having that thing running around town. I mean, how epic is, it's nice to go to a show and look at a static painting on the wall, but imagine something just kind of rolling by. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, another thing that's important about this, again, this painting ties you back to the Clash and the commercial. Now you start getting into commercial design. You go on tour with them. You do live painting. And if you would allow me, you also cut a track with them.
Oh, boy.
Futura, it's my name, and I say graffiti. It's like I got my thing, but it's not my thing that I'm here to claim. I want to tell the real story about my game.
Don't do that. Don't ever do that again.
The reason I played that is because now you're able to tell your story, right? And that's important because you are you have a lot of, how would you say, in your story, you have a lot of collaborations with artists.
Friendships.
And musicians.
I have a lot of friendships also.
Yes,
this
correct.
Is important, right? I mean, I think beyond collaboration in whatever form it manifests itself, there's obviously a product. There's, oh shit, you guys did that. But behind anybody doing anything, where's the relationship? So for me, I've always tried to be as real a person as I can be. Thanks, Mom. I got something good out of that, of course. And, just to say that I want to build relationships with people. Like I said before, in the beginning, I just want to communicate. I want to share shit. I want to tell you what I think, and you educate me on why what I'm thinking was off. Anything. I'm mad open to everything, but it has to be credible, and I'm going to do some backup research on shit. So, but I tend to gravitate with people who I also feel are like-minded, open-minded, and more than a business, they want to do something positive. That's the basis. And then, yes, let's do business. Okay, it's like my guy from, shout out to, my God, it's Mr. De Niro, character in Casino. The dude just made money for people, and in the end, I guess I'm an earner. Okay, I can make money for you. But at the same time, I'd like to have a good relationship with those people. It helped me, feel better.
Right. And the thing is that you're good about that, about establishing relationships, but also you've managed to use those relationships to facilitate things like this, like the point man, the existence of the point man into a product that was easily obtainable and available to people. And now we're getting into the story of design as you as a designer. And what was it about taking the character into a physical form?
Well, I mean, it's because at the time when all of this was being developed, certain individuals, myself, definitely James Lavelle. I mean, this is a product made with Medicom in Tokyo, in Japan. So the era was about toy collecting, toys, a lot of it's the toy era. It's just a little bit before the sneaker culture really exploded. So the toys were, it was an introduction for me to finally see my characters, which were in 2 dimensions, rendered into a 3rd dimension. So I was excited. you know, and I love my introduction with these guys at the time. And I'm very grateful, you know, once again, you know, I had the advantage of being there first, maybe, you know, when everything is kind of popping. I was somewhere in the neighborhood, caught wind. Oh, you want to do this? Oh, that sounds great. You know, once again, for me, it's like some evolutionary thing. And then in this sense, as an artist, hey, if you're a illustrator or anything like that, man, at some point you wouldn't mind seeing your stuff rendered in the third dimension. And then the next step beyond that is animation. And, you know, however you take what you do and see how far it can go.
So one of the things that was really interesting, we talked about this, about it being engaged in the process, right? And in the production. And then to be able to understand design and production to realize it in a much bigger fashion, or perhaps in an automated process that makes it more available to people. We know you've done all the collectibles, and more recently you did these large sculptures.
Wait a minute, someone in your audience coughed. Hang on. I'm not taking any chances.
There you go.
Somebody cough. Yo, somebody cough. Yo, that's how we got to be out here. We're like the new Wuhan. Okay, so we got to take it with a little bit of, like, we got to have fun with it.
We're all part of the Wuhan clan.
We got to have fun with it. My God, did they know they were going to blow up like that? Wuhan forever, yo. Okay.
So now, again, when we talk about design and material, you know, materializing these ideas,
yeah,
extraordinary. Now you've realized them larger than yourself.
Literally, yeah. I mean, you know, once again, we're trying. You know, we're still new to kind of doing certain things, but at least recently I realized, like, you can harness the power, you know, yourself to do stuff. I mean, obviously, you know, that's nothing new about that, but just maybe having the ability to do stuff, you know, without help or, you know, some sort of external investment, you know. So I'm happy to realize things that are, you know, wow, the Mets collabo. You want to talk about that?
Let's go yeah, Mets. I mean, because here's what's interesting in talking about what that last point about scaling up and then mass manufacturing. And the thing is, this particular project was a volume project. It was a limited edition,
yeah.
But the audience it captured, now you're capturing a broader audience. You're a huge Mets fan. I think that's been evident for a long time.
Right back to 1969. You know, I was part of that. Also, you know, we're going on the moon, and then we got a World Series like crazy.
So when this project was proposed to you, well, what did you think? What was your
well, I thought it was a great return on my investment as far as lifelong Met fan. But I thought it was crazy, you know, like, and not only that, yeah, I love this figure being, you know, rendered, and part of that, it's a bobblehead actually. I like the jersey I did, but I especially like throwing out the first pitch to my son. That was pretty incredible, you know. So yeah, I mean, I'm a huge baseball fan, not just the Mets. I love baseball. I did a book called Cathedrals of the Game, my personal tour through Major League Baseball. Never been published. It's not even like a thing, but it's like a passion.
And just so people know that this was beautifully packaged.
Yes.
Yeah, there was a lot of. There's always consideration to your packaging and design, isn't it?
Well, they ask us for input. You know, I mean, a lot of times you can just farm stuff out and outsource, and oh yeah, you know, just put my name on shit and do whatever. But obviously, you know, you can have control to some degree. Yeah, it was a very nice box. The figure himself is a little bit heavy. Actually, I was surprised. It's like a bit weighty, and then they had the jersey in there. No, it was really great. And once again, I'm very grateful to the Mets for letting me have that opportunity. And, you know, I look forward to working with them potentially again. You know, I'm a lifelong New Yorker. And shout out to Colette just for making that happen. That was super dope.
And so, yes, we see that your figures are, you know, you're back to producing them. They're evolving. This one figure on the left with the horns and the Triton.
Yeah.
Who is he? I've never met him.
Oh, he's El Diablo. He's old. You know, he was around, I want to say late 90s. So he's a throwback guy. because once again, I mean, you know, I have a history, or, you know, I have an archival stuff, you know, of things I've done 20 years ago, obviously, you know, even perhaps more. And it's amazing. You know, it's not just like, oh man, let me digitize all my photographs and I'll have them in, you know, as JPEGs. And no, it's like, okay, let me look at all my old shit and do exactly the same thing. Let me scan it. Let me rework it. Let me, you know, let me fix it. You know, there's a lot of triage with the old stuff, but it's there, you know, and why shouldn't, you know, it's my IP, right? In terms of, you know, whatever I intellectually own.
Right. So is it that you have a cast of characters we haven't seen yet?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the thing is, we're not even, you know, it's like, once again, which floor am I on? You know, you want me to be on the character floor? Okay, you know, give me Procreate, give me my style, you know, let me draw some shit. Are we into, you know, making new figures? Yes, we are, because I need to get, as much as I love this guy, and yeah, this is the height of it all, you know, creating, I mean, this is your world, Mayor, and your metallic universe, and how you were already a pioneer for making three-dimensional objects. You know, I'm only following in the wake of what's been done. You know, I mean, come on, like Oldenburg. You know, I mean, we can name some epic individuals who just, you know, threw stuff out there in metallic form. You know, but this is my rendition, and you know, this is not my break train of figures, but I may not be doing this particular guy, you know, much longer. I want to evolve into new figures and bring people hopefully to a new universe.
And bringing them to a new universe is bringing them up to date, right? Because now you're employing 3D printing. And I was super excited that you ventured into that space. And I wish more.
This is done by actually a collaboration with an artist named Charlie Becker. And Charlie is fucking fantastic. And yes, he helped us make this guy. And I'm really liked him a lot because, you know, it's once, you know, it's as you said, it's 3D. It's using a brand new technology. I mean, you know, I'm over here messing around with 3D printers right now. I'm not making sculptures. I'm trying to make masks and shit. But check this guy. It's just some random, you know, some of my 3D work. But just to say, the 3D universe, Charlie, I mean, you know, we've been there before Charlie, but Charlie showed us what's possible. And in the technology, you know, the technological world we're in, you know, it's fantastic.
So this would segue us right into the show, right? And you, in terms of design and apparel design, it's nothing new. You've been in the game for a long time, but here you're at the height of it right now with Virgil. This show was widely covered, and your participation in it, explain to us how that process worked between you and the designer.
Yeah, so, I mean, you know, in the end, you know, Virgil wanted to work with some imagery in addition to some hand embellished things that I might actually create for him, and that he was going to incorporate in real time, which they almost did. You know, they had me out there doing some things that he had some tailors and people putting ideas together. And so it never worked with anybody like Virgil before, you know, and I think it's because he's got so much, you know, creativity and resource, you know, he's just going to make things happen. And so as an artist working with someone who's got another vision, oh, yo, I want to take your stuff here, you know, it's completely, you know, we've been having, you know, Virgil was calling them conversations, you know, that we have, and it gets back to relationships, you know, that if we can be symbiotic as people, and we talk and we, you know, we share a kind of, oh yeah, no, my God, this is exactly what I was thinking. So that's how I feel when I'm around Virg. He's really amazing, you know, just to check in with. And so this whole campaign went way off beyond what I thought, you know, of a classic, you know, the alphabet of collaborations. You know, was amazing. And
yeah, it is a fantastic collaboration. You also did the collaboration with him and Nike with the Off-White, and these were on fire.
Yeah, these kind of that was June of last year, a time before time. And yeah, we kind of broke the internet a little bit with this, because it's like we didn't know what we were going to do with these. we're going to have friends and family. We're going to try to limit it. We're going to, now we're talking about possibly offering them for charity. I think there's only a couple pairs of these that were done for his show. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, but like I have a long history with Nike. And
You
so,
do have an amazing history with Nike.
oh, snap.
And this is one of the most important sneakers of this conversation.
Yeah. Flam, yeah. Well, I mean, it's the philosophy more than the money making. It's an idea for love or money, not for love of money. It's big. It's like one word or of one letter RF, but it's a big significance. It makes a big deal. So for me, it's about for love or money, because even then, even in 2004, and this shoe was a gift from Nike, from basically Mark Parker and Sandy Bodecker, rest in peace, who was Nike SB, and made this happen, I don't know, in a remarkable turnaround. Something that like it doesn't happen in the industry. Sneakers 6 months, whatever the timeline on actually trying to make a sample and getting it out there. Not even a sample, but like, oh, we've got product to ship. This took less than a month. I mean, I wish they could do a vaccine, like that, like the way they made this shoe. So it was remarkable, and it was a gift. And I gave away a couple of pairs at my shop opening at the time, and the other 22 pairs, whatever, were given to my, my family. Hey!
Are you aware of the market value of that shoe right now?
I don't want to know. But whatever it is, it's obscene. It doesn't make sense, but I don't know. Everything is, it's like anything else. It's only 24 pairs. It's so limited. It's so valuable. It's a grail. It's a goat. Oh, you're a goat. No. It's a piece. It's some material sewn together. It's got all this historical reference to it that isn't really, really. I mean, I'm not shopping for shit like that, and in the world of today, maybe some of these irrelevant, inflations of things, monetary, like, what are you fucking kidding me? People are starving. People are dying. Like, how you trying to, so right now I've been in a COVID, cocoon. And, we're here in New York, we're living it, we're doing the best we can. We're not, I see people hanging out. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yes.
You know what I mean? Let's like try to snuff this shit.
Lenny, I want to really quickly, for those that are just joining us,
I haven't had time to shout everyone out. I'm pretty sure we got some
that's
of
okay.
our peoples.
What I'm going to say,
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, what I'm going to say is that we're going to do part 2, because Instagram gives us an hour. We'll log off and we'll come back on, because there's quite a lot to cover.
I love it. I can smoke off camera. I can smoke a joint off camera.
You can smoke on camera.
Damn it.
But I want to let people know that you're on with the Museum of Graffiti's Daily Artist Talk, and we're speaking with the icon Futura. And so I want to jump right back to your sneaker game, because it is ridiculous.
Shout out to P-Rod, by the way.
Yes, you've done some amazing work over the years, but it's not just sneakers, and it's not just it's interesting because I'm curious about design. In terms of deciding design, again, you have this silhouette that's already been established, that's important, and there's some variations that you can add to it. How much leeway do you get as an artist in dictating design?
I mean, you get all the time, I guess you would need, right? Because it's all pending on you at that point. Like, I mean, I'm sure there's like scheduling and optimum times of release and all that, but I mean, I guess they're not pressuring you. You come up with the design. I mean, I would imagine it's like, how quickly do you want to see it happen? How aggressive are you? How on point are you? How, on time are you and everything? As an artist, as an individual, on delivering your assets. Me, it depends. Some things I slow walk. Something I'm all, oh my God, I can't wait. It depends. But working with Nike, though, traditionally has always been amazing. They just, you're right. They give you a template. They say, okay, you're working on a Dunk, you're working on an SB, you're working on an AF1, a Blazer, whatever the model is, and you bust it out, And so once again, I think, that whole culture, has been a little bit, you guys went a little crazy, but yes, I see it. I mean,
one of the things
did you have the Converse also? You did, right?
Yeah. But one of the things we're looking at this Nike sneaker. But what I want to point out in terms of
the Dunkel.
the dunkel.
Yeah.
One of the things that's really important and why I put your paintings in the background of the image, right? Because you as a studio artist and a painter and you're a designer, you know, it works hand in hand, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, it's a very easy, you know, like, you know, once you get into that design space and you realize, you know, okay, you know, what are the limitations? Maybe that's why I like design too. There are limitations. You know, it's not like me worrying about a painting where everything just kind of goes everywhere and there's no real, you know, the dimensions of the actual physical piece don't apply. I let the shit just fly off the edge. So in design, there's always obvious clinical restrictions. You got to do this, that, this height, this, that, whatever. But I like it. You know, oh, shout out to the Clark's project. That I did with Futura Laboratories when I had my company. There's another couple of versions of those, but those were very nice.
Right. So you're not just limited to sneakers, which I like because you've done some shoes. I really like the shoes that you were designing for these companies.
That's a then and now. That's almost a 20-year span. That's an undercover shoe model on the left. I work with Jun Takahashi, and the shoes on the right are actually a very recent project I just did with Gore-Tex.
And so how much interest do you have in the physical design rather than the application of design?
It depends. You know, like, for example, in both cases here, I just simply gave people existing files and we went back and forth as to the placement and blah, blah, blah. In certain other things, like I did a well, like the Flam or a blazer I did with Nike, I was very specific, you know, this color here, this there, this fabric here. There's a Nike SB I did, it's under the radar, called the Shark. I mean, you know, and hey, oh, by the way, I know we're winding around, we're going to talk about other things, but I just want to shout out Stash, just because this whole sneaker thing is really in aid to how we were together doing PD and Recon and all those years when we were developing stuff together.
Yeah, and I would say shout out to GFS for those that remember the
no doubt
origins of your ventures into design.
Philly Blunt.
Yeah, and we'll get to that because it's interesting. You mentioned Converse.
Yeah, they're the cons.
These were fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, I really enjoyed that campaign a lot because I went back to my military, you know, like the things I used to do. You see the soles on the bottom on the right were really cool, military camo. Yeah, I mean, for me, Converse is going back to my, you know, it's taking you back to probably me wearing Converse when I saw 2001: A Space Odyssey. You know, that's how far back I go with Chuck Taylor. So for me, it was inevitable. And, oh, by the way, the kind of boys with Nike. So in a sense, I'm still in the same tribe, but I was just getting out of all those classic models that I had already done and had thought about Converse for a long time. And then finally I got that opportunity. So I was really grateful for that. And they're in a fantastic company, you know, to work with.
Yeah, you mentioned something very important in this, that rather than, you know, being an artist who gives submits a design for production, these guys are building a campaign around you, which is important, right? Because you've earned that.
Well, I mean, you know, thank you. Yeah, sure. In this case, there was a whole campaign around being yourself. I remember they did a great thing when this happened like 3-4 years ago, 4 or 5. It was basically the campaign was they went around the world, really. And they had everybody just being themselves, who had, like, no celebrities, no influencers, none of that shit. It was just regular folk rocking their Converse. And they kind of blew it up. And I thought it was a genius campaign because, once again, for me, at the end of the day, yeah, I make products, I do this and that, but I care about the consumer. I care about the kid, he, she, them, they, whoever's rocking your stuff or supporting you in a certain way. Like, that's the people you got to care about. And then in a certain way, like, try to elevate them, I don't know, in a campaign, you're a major company, you can afford to do it. And then also, they do really cool projects too. You know, they had the whole music thing they were doing. So I appreciate companies that are philanthropic and want to help artists, not just like myself. I'm very grateful, you know, but also help other artists, help way lesser artists, you know, who really need to be helped. So I always encourage that, whether it was Hennessy, a thing I did years ago. Yeah, you want to work with major artists around the world, but while we do that, let's work with local artists in these cities that we're trying to sell them shit. So, you know, that's kind of how I approach a business model, if you will. It's, yeah, it's good to make money and be successful and be professional and do all the things you have to do to do the right things, but treat your people right. Not only your employees, of course, but your consumers too, because, you know, that's what they're looking for. You know, they want to trust something. They want to believe in something that's like not full of shit.
Yeah, I like that philosophy because for, you know, as we think about this journey we've been discussing, one of the things that's a thread going through it all is that you've been cultivating a not just a culture, but people. You've been cultivating relationships. You've been inspiring. You've been
It's a community. It's a community.
Correct.
Right? Like back
There's
in
a
the
good
day,
ethos in all of this.
back in the day, I used to consider myself like, you know, I mean, the world was smaller back then and everything was satellites. You know, it was all looking out to other individuals in other cities and other locations around the world. How do you connect with them? How do we, you know, it's like long distance phone calls, you know, that was, you know, whatever. So finally, you know, and today, you know, it's ridiculous. Of course, we're with everybody, you know, everybody's here with us. But back then it was very difficult to do that. And you know, everything took time. The photograph of Martha's train, the brake train, I didn't see that photograph for 6 months. So that's absurd in a real time, how does it apply way? You know, everything was just so slow.
Yeah.
So I don't know, you know, maybe that speed encouraged, you know, the spread of the communication. You know, it's remarkable to think how we existed without some of the tools of today, actually. You know, like, wow, did we really have to rely on people's word that they were going to be at a certain place on a certain time? You know, all of how we used to hook up with people.
Yeah, but somehow we managed to figure it out, right? And create a sustainable economy for ourselves and our ideas on the street. And, you know, when you talk about these, you know, communications long distance, you have somebody like Sean Stussy from, you know, who started Stussy. And again, you've had a long standing relationship with that brand, but also a brand that from a modest beginning, right? Analog.
Yes. Well, I was saying that if you look at this shirt on the right, you know, Stussy's, Sean's tag, his signature, you know, I think we all gravitated to that because we're all graffiti writers. You know, I was saying before, I'm a graffiti writer. You know, I like tags. I like, you know, I like to see someone write their name. You know, I like penmanship. I like calligraphy. I like, you know, I like Arabic. I like Mandarin. I like foreign languages with shit I can't even read. You know, it's just the flow of it all. And that's what graffiti kind of had in the beginning. And Sean had that. He's surfing. You're shaping and you know, making surfboards out in Cali, and then, oh, by the way, you gotta, oh, let me just write my name on this, and it becomes this whole movement. And props to Sean, you know, for then and now. I recently saw him, you know, as early as Paris in January, I believe, and you know, we were talking about doing stuff, and he just had this big moment with Dior, which is fantastic, you know, to sort of acknowledge who he is as a real GOAT, okay, and that term, because he is. He inspired me. Me and Stash, when we started GFS with Gerb, you know, it was like PNB Nation. We're making dope shirts with like graphics. And, you know, for me, it's now the 90s. And I was thinking, damn, you know, the graffiti thing is kind of over, way over. And people are trying to legitimize their creativity. And I was like graphic design anyway. And we were talking about, yeah, that's the era of just before I worked at Kinko's when I got a PC. I had a 386 PC working on Corel Draw, thinking I was all that on a computer, and you know, now I look back and know that's like total amateur hour, but yet that was my intro, and that led me to, you know, working at Kinko's. I was just scheming, you know, on them to use their shit, learn how to use Macs. Wow, Adobe. What is Illustrator? What is this file? What is files extension? You know, and then boom, I get online, and I guess that's really, as we were discussing, more or less through you and your brother, who were already considered, this is mid-90s now, and you guys were writing code and putting up something, Voice of the Ghetto, whatever thing you guys were doing. I'm like, wait, what? Like, yeah, that's the next level, because what, you know, the global vision is, well, what? There are people out there that we can't connect with, but wait, there's this new medium that we may be able to, you know, cut to DMs on IG. So it's like, wait, so the idea of wanting to communicate, whatever it was, imagery, propaganda, nonsense. I used to do interviews that weren't even people interviewing me. It was just all fake shit. It was just all like a facade.
Yeah.
But, you know, it was a labyrinth, you know.
But in those, if I could interject, in those analog days, you know, you were, again, there was a different skill set and communication skill sets that, you know, enabled us to work really hard and to hustle, like all the Philly Blunt shirts, all the stuff that you guys were doing. That was all just street hustle. And we've come a long way since then. But the technology enabled you to start collaborating with other brands and companies like Supreme, who else? Bape as well. So you have these long-standing relationships that have grown with you from the analog to the digital. And of course, this is all influencing what's to come for you, which is Futura Labs. And so what I want to do now is, because Instagram is
you're gonna make that break?
Gives us an hour, yeah. So what I want to tell folks out there, I want to thank you all for joining us in this conversation, because the second half gets really exciting, I have to say. At Futura, you've had a tremendous impact on the graffiti culture, the streetwear culture, the design culture. And we want to explore.
And I'm a parent of two fucking fantastic children.
Yeah,
that's gotta be acknowledged too. That was my side hustle.
And yeah.
I did all this. I had a side hustle. I brought my people along too, because the journey, you know, you got to take care of the crew.
That's right. Timmy and Tabitha are right there with you.
Thank you. And, you know, so shout out to them, because, you know, straight up my best work. But also, we talk about WIP and DIY and, blah, 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 and any 3-letter old school graffiti crew. But that's my guys. And, I'm doing it for them also, because some individuals that did it for me had the most limited resources. Okay. They had nothing. These people, my dad worked his fucking ass off. I'm embarrassed that I can write my name. I can sell a signature for about what my dad was making annual. Come on. So why am I a nice guy? Well, what the fuck? I'm truthful to my heart. I know how that makes me. It's like, wow, that's crazy. So let's take a break. I need just a carcinogenic moment, but I'll be back. And I love everyone that's out there. And please stay safe. Wear a mask.
Okay, folks. 5 o'clock, 5 p.m.
We're back.
We're back at 5 p.m. Thank you.
I love it. Thank you.
Take care. He's back.
Hey, we're back. Hey.
What was that?
Hey,
that was a teaser.
Little teaser.
We'll get to that.
We're back. Okay. How's everybody out there? Everybody gets to go to the bathroom and... Sorry about that, Carlos. Here we go.
No, I love it. I love it. Thank you for humoring us.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm excited by that teaser, but we'll end on that as well.
Okay.
Again, given that we've discussed your early influences, your early graffiti, your early success as a gallery artist and traveling around the world, and then venturing into design, starting your own brands, and collaborating over the years with other brands like Stussy and Supreme, Bathing Ape, etc. You created your own brand. You've had your own brand for some time, but now there's a concerted effort to develop a brand.
Yeah, I mean, once again, this is mid 2000s, after the GFS era, when we were getting into Recon and Project Dragon. Trying to just, it's the classic, right? You're in a group, you go solo. You're like, oh, I could maybe do my own thing. And, so that's kind of how it started.
Now, in terms of now you're venturing off, it's not just about application. You have to understand marketing and production. You have a whole new skill set that you have to learn to play in the game, don't you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, once again, we start from pretty much self-taught level. So once you get into production, you know, you're going to have to farm that out to manufacturing of some level. When I did my shop FL in Fukuoka, I had a partnership with my Japanese friends, partners, and then they were handling a lot of the cut and sew and all that stuff. And so, you know, by that point, I'd already learned how to do a company through PD and GFS and Recon. So we were at least educated enough now to understand what to do, what not to do.
And so now, I mean, what we're looking at now, again, what I like about this image, and this was a fairly recent release on your part, but again, it speaks to where we started this story, your history in the military. That's been something that's run through your art and of course your collaborations like with Bathing Ape, but now you're really owning it.
Yeah, well, that's like a tiger stripe camo flight suit that we did on the piece on the right. So that's a shout out to Vietnam era, of course. But you know, once again, I mean, it's a theme. I hope it's not intended to be militaristic in a sense. It's not really. It's simply, you know, yes, it's a great way to dress up the stage. I mean, I remember when I was on tour with The Clash, their Sandinista tour initially, and back in '81, you know, they were all about this military checkpoints and the frontiers and what that meant about different locations and you know, the fact that like an East and West Berlin situation, you know, anything where there's walls and borders, there's friction and tension. You know, I look at what I'm doing here with FL and this particular instance as a kind of a, you know, it's all a theatrical backdrop to the clothing, to the merchandising. But okay, that's totally different. You know, that's benign. That's like a project I did with Uniqlo recently. I'm very grateful to work with Uniqlo. That's another great brand. If anything, in that the product is very affordable. So it's the kind of thing you can get to the consumer. There's no like secondary market for Uniqlo products, you know, so that's very refreshing. And then there's the classic, you know, high level coaches stadium jacket.
Right. So what's interesting to me is how your products, like these collaborations, again, it's not just an artist collaboration, it's a brand to brand collaboration.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like, you know, brands can be friends too, right? Because once again, you know, hey, the brands are associating with each other. Why are they doing that? Oh, well, they're either sharing a marketplace and a kind of generational demographic, or they're looking to reach those individual you know, it's like, I think people would approach me now, not just creatively, oh, Futura, we like what you do, we'd like to work with you, but they also know that, like, you know, you have X amount of followers and, you know, companies are paying people based on exposure and stuff. So, you know, it's a little bit different now. And once again, I don't listen to the, you know, I just follow my own kind of compass and I do what I feel is right. And once again, working with those people I feel are good brands to work with. And once again, I love what Uniqlo is doing with, once again, like affordable products. I was mentioning Funko and the stuff we did. You know, those products are very cheap economically. And then they wind up having enormous, you know, value to those individuals that covet them. And, oh, I got the whole set. And, you know, hey, man, good for you. I'm glad you have the whole set, you know, and you didn't have to pay a dime, and, you know, an arm and a leg. And it's not like some flom issues, you know, well, my God, they only made 24 of them. So, you know, it's not about mass production because, once again, I'm not trying to mass produce anything. I don't want to, no, I just want to make the right amount, you know, based on consumer, is it demand, need? People say, oh, I need, you know, needs of like a four-letter word you see a lot out there. Need. You don't need anything. You know, you don't.
How do you deal with the phenomena of you know, the secondary market, right? That these young kids are consuming again, they have much more money than we did, but they have so much more money to buy and resell. They create their own ecosystem, their own economy based on your work.
Specifically, yeah, I guess. But I'm just one of many. You know, there's a whole list of, you know, companies, individuals, products that are in that, you know, in that realm of highly collectible, and then not just collect, you know, because I mean, you know, it makes me think of DJs. You know, they obviously they needed to buy 2 of everything. Some smart ones bought 3. You know, I got to back up. Sneaker culture, even back in the day, before we knew what we were doing, we're buying 2 pairs, not to flip a pair, but to rock it, you know, like next year and come out the box with something super fresh that hadn't been, you know, like never saw air. So I don't know, you know, it's all different now. I'm not against any of that, because at the same time, you know, go for it, do it. You know, you're up against a lot of competition. Okay, I'm sure there's kids elsewhere with more resources than you who can, I don't know, you know, they got robots and, you know, bots and all this stuff that like helps to cut through the, you know, the economic checkout window. So that makes me want to fall back, try to find a safe way to do it myself that I can help, you know, control, if you will, you know, how stuff goes out and isn't misappropriated.
Yeah. One of the things you had mentioned before about Uniqlo, that the thirst isn't the same, for instance, in terms of the demand as something
thirst.
like right, like this for Comme des Garçons, like
sure.
This would have a higher demand and resale value. But this
Yes.
is, again, to me, I love this because it brings you back to kind of an old painting aesthetic, you know, from the 80s with the saw blade and everything.
Sure.
It's a classic.
Yeah, I mean, this translated actually really well, because all I did was take a painting and, you know, zero saturation, grayscale, you know, you make a grayscale image of a color image. But yeah, it works really well because it's a way for me to, once again, you know, like we were talking before, Carlos, it's the products are the variation of products, variation in the characters I've created. You know, you have price levels, you know, and same for your high end, low end, you know, like what Virgil's selling, what Ray's selling here with CDG, and you know, it's a higher price point as opposed to the Uniqlo price point. So that's considered what do I want to show in that price point? You know, like what am I trying to push in that room? So I consciously, obviously, you know, I'm selecting. Now, at the same time, I'm not specific, like, yo, this image, this thing right here, this right here. No, I'll agree on what I want to submit. For example, in this particular campaign, you know, I have a few images I would like to see rendered on a sweatshirt, on a t-shirt, on a whatever. And then I'll give them a choice, because I'm pretty much clear on the 4 I've submitted. I'm cool with all of them, but I need them to have input too, because it's not you know, my way or the highway, because that's not collaborating. That's not working collectively. You know, collectively is we both have input. Now, some companies are like, oh my God, no, please. You know, okay, fine. You know, but either way, I'm open, not just to interpretation, but to collaboration, because that's what it's about. You know, and that's where Virgil exceeded the 50% threshold that you would normally apply to any kind of collaboration. Like I do half, you do half. Okay, some people, even in effort, will fall short. You can't deliver 50%.
Right. I'm going to go. Sorry, I'm.
Yeah. Flash forward.
I want to talk about from this point in terms of, you know, the kind of objects and the products you're placing your image on. How you also, you know, you went on to do like really go hard with some of the skateboards, and this was really great because it shows. One, that you're in tune with the youth culture and everything, but you were there once. We talked about Andy Kessler being a friend.
Yes.
You know, you were around
New York. You know, New York
right,
is the New York
exactly.
version of, you know, you know, it's like East Coast skateboarding.
Right. So this kind of, again, application is the next
Shout
part
out to Skateboard Pete. Just saying. Okay.
Yeah. And but something very interesting. This series, it's an artwork. It's a legitimate artwork. It's not just skateboards.
But it's following in the tradition of the Ramel Z boards for Supreme. I don't know if Dondi did maybe, but you know, it's not new. I mean, but this is obviously different than the FL one we saw previously with my logo on it. You know, like this is like, oh, that's a famous painting of mine from back in the day called Violent Treasure. And in the idea of wanting to see a artwork of mine across 5 decks, yeah, I mean, first time I've done it. You know, a lot of these things I'm just arriving at now because, oh, you know, in so much as this particular one, you know, skateboard design, boom, classic. You know, it's like a template for an AF1. But in this, I'm just trying to give you a little bit more, but once again, acknowledging the descendancy of, you know, where shit kind of came from, where you first saw someone do that. And I'm sure Ram's not the first one to have done it. I go into art museums around the world. I see Warhol, Basquiat, you know, I see other artists on skateboards. So, you know, it's just another medium. And once again, whether I'm communicating it like now, you know, you get a chance to hear me speak, or all you never heard me speak, and all you know is what you've seen, like with visuals like the Flam skateboard, which accompanied the Flam shoe. This was something we could sell because we couldn't sell the shoe. So we had a couple hundred of these maybe, you know, but that was also short-lived. And shout out to Splay because initially we did Sammy from Splay, and we did a wonderful thing. But this is also like ancient history in the sense of, you know, stuff I did. You know, it's like that one record, I forget who it was, but, you know, people tripping off the shit I said last year. So it's like, for me, that's been exaggerated, you know, by a couple of decades. But,
yeah, but what's interesting, Lenny, is that this board, it's coveted like a piece of art, not just a skateboard.
Well, you know what? It's also like, once again, shout out to Supreme, in a sense that you guys make decks that look like they could be artwork rather than a skatable deck. And then there you go again, buying in multiples. So, you know, at some sense, yeah, I'd love it because, once again, this is the closest anyone's going to get to Flam. You know, it's like if you got the deck, I don't know what the going price on the deck is, probably a couple, $200-300 bucks. But if you got the deck, okay, you're kind of still part of it. You know, you're actually, because a lot of what these products do too, Mayor, is that they're time stamped. You know, so you get to show your representation. You know, oh, I support this artist. Oh, look what I got. I got it. But then you're also like putting yourself in history. You know, you're bringing yourself into the past. It sounds funny, you know, you bring yourself to the past, but in a sense you are. You know, by acknowledging some of these older things in cultural history, we can reminisce and be part of. Again, you know, we can still be part of it.
Right, but interestingly enough too, but it also tells us a little bit more about you in terms of design, right? Your graphic design, the choices you make as a designer, and the way you think. And this was an interesting period in terms of again, you're embracing technology and
well, once again, look at that, you know, just to quickly backtrack, the medium of money as a creative visual, you know, all those colors, all those countries, all that text, all that whatever. Once again, words you can't even understand. Stamps. I was you know, I was very influenced by stamps as a kid also in the 60s. Because, you know, so artwork, you know, I remember going to Holland in the early 80s. You know, the Dutch were very supportive. Thank you very much to all my Dutch people. And their money was fabulous. You know, just before the euro, the Dutch gulden and the design. And so money is always also a thing like, hey, you know, like money's very nicely made. You know, obviously, you know, watermarked and counterfeit proof and all that shit. But just graphically speaking, like money is amazing. So, yeah. There you go. That's why I gravitated to that collage, and I always have, you know, and I always throw money into one of those boxes at every airport. I always do. Yeah. I just have to. I love those things.
You know what's so interesting, Lenny? You know, when we were neighbors and I'd come down and you'd come back from a trip, you'd have all this currency. I mean, you have tons and tons of currency. You collect currency.
I think at 64 countries, I actually have it all, right? I mean, because I always did that. I never used to transfer out paper money. You know, any coins, yeah, I'll try to get rid of the coins. But I always kept the paper money. My friend's like, yo, that's $100, you know, it's $100. I'd be like, yeah, okay, well, maybe if I return or whatever, I'll have that 100. So I never cashed in my paper money, and I have a crazy, probably like 60 plus countries that I've been to, obviously. And I got your paper, yo.
It would be interesting one day. You know, that's your emergency money stash.
We looked at that. There's definitely some money there. But, you know, my mother told me save up for 2 weeks. That's what my mom used to tell me when I was a kid. Save up for 2 weeks. Became 2 months, you know, kind of about 2 years now, you know. So yeah, save your pennies.
Keep stacking them chips.
That's
So
it.
Lenny, I want to jump back into you as
I'm going to create something. Those
Yes.
of you who know me, you know what that means. So carry on.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, you know, we've been talking about
Just like Hope Street, nothing's changed.
Yeah. For those that know Hope Street.
Sorry about
And,
that.
Those were amazing days.
Shout out to Eddie. Love you.
Yeah. And rest in peace, Joe, his brother. I don't know if he's passed.
Man.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, shout out. This thing is this is no time to, yes, we can speak of those who we lost. But yeah, man, I mean, you know, I look at our culture and it's a bit of a cemetery now. You know, it's just very sad.
Interesting times, losing some of our old friends. So I want to jump back into this about.
Yep. Shout out to Errolson, an acronym. This was an acronym project.
It was? Okay, good.
Yeah.
Because it's, again, it's not just about the application. I'm going to quote Style Wars here, application of a medium to a surface. You tend to embellish these products. They're really become artworks that are done by hand. And
yeah, well, think about how many jackets did we tag up in the 80s? And even you've seen some of them, you know, with Jean's tags and Keith and Andy and, you know, every Baram, everybody tagged mad leather jackets with silver, opaque, whatever markers, metallic pens, Pentel, whatever, all of it. But then, you know, we didn't really spray paint on stuff. You know what I mean? We were kind of just tagging stuff. So now in this particular application, okay, red splattered paint on a black bag, or yeah, it kind of makes sense. And you know, there's your one-off piece. You know, so it's a no-brainer. I mean, you could have a machine do that too, but I feel, you know, as the artist, if you want to call me one, yeah, let me give you something. Let's not call it artistic. Let's just call it original, which I also feel is super key to who we are too, man. We've all been, as best we could, as original as we could be.
Yeah.
Because we were told early on, you know, biting and fucking stealing shit, you know, wasn't cool. And, you know, I always used to say, hey, I don't care if people, you know, I mean, yes, it's not cool. And I guess in some sense it would be evident. You know, people would say, oh, hey, you're biting. So, you know, it's like you showed your influence so much that people are like, oh man, that looks very much like so-and-so's. But I never minded it, actually, personally, you know, because when I first started painting the Break Train and people compared me to someone I never heard of, like Kandinsky, I was like, well, okay, I need to learn more about art. But then two, I used to say to that, well, okay, that's cool now. In 1980, you're saying that to me, but you know what, maybe in 20 years, maybe in the year 2000, maybe when I'm Futura 2000, if I live that long, other people will have been influenced by me. And then they'll look at their work and say, oh, that looks a lot like Futura. In which case, they may just be like, hey, you're right. You know, because they would have at least known. Unlike me accidentally happening into some Russian constructivist style that I had never heard of.
Right. Hold that thought, because I want to ask our audience how many of you have been influenced by Futura?
Oh, stop.
Yeah, let them write it on the thread.
No,
because it's important. I know Remy has mentioned you a bunch.
And I love Remy.
There are a lot of people that have.
Remember craft futurism and all that, when that kind of kicked over?
Yeah.
And I thought that was really amazing to think that, you know, and let's just go back 10 years for that. And I know it's longer than that, but, you know, just to think that something I thought of as a individual style, once again, individual, trying to do something unique here in the world of everyone else doing amazing things, from the Lees to the Dondies to the scene, you know, Zeph was killing it, you know, is with Days Crash. I mean, all Pink, you know, anyone who was really doing work on trains was doing primarily, they're all speaking the same language, you know, and the language was, as Ram described, the armament and the whatever, the positioning of your letter. And, you know, that corny graphic you put up of mine from 1981, it might have been a black book that Zephyr had, you know, you see my drop shadow. And I remember someone telling me, the drop shadow. It's the most important element of a piece, and you can't have a piece without drop shadow. And so all those laws that applied, you know, I just abandoned them, man. I just said, no, you know, you don't have to be told what to do. I mean, we were already violent. You know, we were doing something we were told not to do.
Well, you gave many people permission. That was important.
Well, yeah, because once again, at the time, you know, I commented on your image on IG, like, people weren't really feeling me doing that then. You know, they were saying like, yo, what's that shit? And okay, fine, because, you know, I didn't take it as a criticism, because once again, I was already leaving. You know, this was like my love letter. You know, ciao, I'm out of the system now. You know, I got out of jail maybe, or something kind of feeling. But yeah, man, you know, it's been very hard, Mayor, to get in people's heads that what we did then was only motivated by our passion to exist, to sort of be acknowledged on a level that for a lot of us living in this city, growing up here, was very stifling, you know. And you had mentioned yesterday with Days, or a couple of days ago rather, about how the city was broke. You know, it's a very interesting time, the 70s, and how we were able to do what we did. And more importantly, shout out to Henry and Martha and Charlie and Freddie and everyone who contributed to the ultimate exportation of our culture, because that's what we're living off of now. You know, we're living on the legacy of everything that those individuals contributed. You know, myself, yourself, we all contributed. Like I say to people, yo, don't give me crazy credit for all of this, because it's a really huge program, okay, with a lot of people and a lot of engines, machines firing on so many levels, and everybody's shit sparking another thing, and then you connect with him and he connects with them, and everything starts happening, and somebody invests in you. And shout out to Agnes B and all the people, you know, who were there for me as a element of support as an artist when you need people, you know, to help you maintain and move on. And there she is. And I love Agnes, because she was so beautiful in the sense of, you know, when I meet Agnes, it's the end of the 80s. It's the, you know, Timothy's 4. You know, I'm still wondering what the hell am I going to do? I'm working at the post office. You know, I'm working as a messenger. I was killing the game back then. I was making like $200 a day as a messenger. And then I was like moonlighting with the post office. Anything. I was hustling. You're right. We're come from, you know, I'm a fucking hustler. But to a point, because then at a certain point, I can't get over. You know, there's nothing wrong with hustling, but then it's also like trying to get over on people. You know, there's the other side of it. So hustling for all the right reasons. You know, hustling to just, but man, Agnes was like, well, what happened? You had your artwork in the 80s and you were, and I said, yeah, but I don't have a studio, you know? And so thank you, Agnes. And thank you to any patrons who's supporting any artist, not me. You know, whoever you're buying right now and you like what they do and you're encouraging them, please do that, you know, because we've all needed that in times in our life. And it's very, very important, you know, that now, once again, you know, we're in a fucking dilemma. Okay, so I'm not asking for nothing. Okay, I don't want anything. I want to help. Okay, I want to help as much as I can right now. So now it's not like, you know, don't be investing in me.
Well, one thing that if I can add, the way that you're helping is by succeeding, right? And by doing these works, these collaborations, getting your work out there and inspiring us. And I want to bring that to something recent that you did with Modernica, because this project is wonderful. And again,
yes, it really is.
It shows that anything is possible, right? When we see you there as part of the process, it's like, bet, I got to find my Modernica, my collaborator, my patron to take the work to the next level.
Yeah, I mean, that is a fantastic project. And thanks so much, Modernica, to get me involved in that. And yeah, going out there, shout out to Josh, and just kind of how I saw the process. I mean, literally, they were making the shit when I was there also. So not only am I on the front end or the back end of submitting stuff, and we go through PDFs and you're looking at mock-ups and you're like, oh yeah, that looks great. But then no, I'm there and I'm with them as they're making it. You know, like I'm not like pressing the handles on the machines and shit, but I'm in there and amazing. So thanks to Modernica, because you know what? I was a consumer. You know, I used to buy like Modernica tables of shit, you know, like, and so it all comes around in a wonderful way. And recently they're in the game. Shout out to Roger Gassman and Beyond the Streets and what they did not only the last year in 2019, but previously in LA. And that's how we got hooked up with them. And so I've done something with them and that led up to this. So thanks to everyone involved in making that happen. And once again, let me also shout out my people, Sky, Nickel, Geraldo, Pete, Chile, my whole Icon team.
Your team, you've built a good team around you now.
Really have. Really have.
And this is the one thing, going back to your impact, right? You're venturing into new spaces, and we're cheering you on because these spaces were not available to us. And we were talking about the BMW project. For those that don't know, BMW's had this fantastic art car project that has involved Alexander Calder, Frank Stella, Andy Warhol, etc. And now one of our own gets to do this legitimately. And oddly enough, we talked about this, that, you know, living in Brooklyn, I always saw you in your BMW. You are legitimately a BMW head. And so this comes across your desk, and it's a phenomenal opportunity for you to engage with something you actually are invested in.
Yeah, and once again, I mean, you know, this beyond a dream come true. You know, it's like a, you know, what the fuck, wow, really kind of opportunity for me. And so I was so grateful. Thank you, Marcus. Thank you, everyone from BMW, to get me in on that and the M division. So yeah, just have that experience to go to Germany, paint the car. Epic, you know, and yes, it's just on the, you know, right at the beginning of all this stuff. So once again, I mean, you know, this is perhaps my greatest collaboration to date, you know, but at the moment, once again, you know, everything kind of seems less important. But yes, want to say thank you so much. And hopefully we'll get that out there at some point when everything's back to normal.
Yeah, and it's not just one
car. As best we can.
Let's elaborate on this, because this is not just one car you painted. It's a series.
Yeah, you're right. You know what? You're right. And this is the first time. I mean, yes, BMW has that history, as you mentioned. Other cars have done interventions with artists to paint this car for this event, and they showcase it in some event. No, BMW is actually going to production with 500 of these. And prior to the European lockdown, we were in Germany working on what would be the hand embellished elements of this car. So every car is going to have hand painted bits by me, which is quite interesting. And yeah, super project. Just once again, grateful for that. And everything's in limbo, which is obvious. And, you know, at some point we'll be able to maybe smile or, you know, collectively for that.
I saw that you posted, was it Travis Scott?
What, a birthday shout out this week to him?
Yeah, was he in the car?
Oh, yeah. So when we were in LA, Freeze Art Fair, which I believe was February, maybe, we were there for that. And yeah, Travis and I we're going to be working on something, TBD. And I asked him, you know, hey, you want to come check out the whip? It's at the Universal Studios, which is where the Freeze event was. So yeah, I got to hang with Travis. He saw the car. He came by. Thanks so much for him to, you know, do that. We took a couple photos and stuff. But yeah, that's.
Have there been any pre-orders?
Yes, there have. I mean, I'm pretty sure. You know, once again, everything is in flux, and you know that was all once, you know, the land before time. So I don't know, but yes, there were, and there was a lot of interest. I mean, you know, not for nothing, there was a lot of interest. So we'll see. We'll see.
Wow, it's such an impressive project. And again, you're amongst giants in the art world and culture. You're on the pantheon of right side by side to some of my favorite artists.
Yeah, I actually saw their private collection. You know, they have over, I don't know, 50 cars perhaps in different garages, you know, different locations. They don't have everything in one location. And, you know, they were saying like nobody's actually ever seen all of them, you know, because they're not in one place. But yeah, I got to see a lot of them, and it was interesting. I got to see them before I did my own version. And once again, it's on that saw blade motif. But I also feel that what's cool about it is I have my car, the one I painted, but the production car is a lot more subdued. So,
wait, you own the car you painted?
No, no. The car I painted is actually their car, and I believe I'm going to have to paint perhaps another one. Someone mentioned talk about phase 2. Yes.
Will you own one of your own cars?
Yeah, I will, but then I was thinking of flipping it. I don't know. I had an idea of what I could do with it. You know.
Gotcha.
That's also to be announced.
So, moving ahead, this project, when it flashed on the screen on one day and then it disappeared.
Yeah,
it's a phenomenal project.
Secret project.
And it's the secret project.
Yep.
And one of the things I like about it, is you're employing technology. You and I are big time tech heads, and we believe it's important to utilize that in our art. And you have taken it to the next level with this project. And I want to share this with folks, this video. Tell us a little bit about it.
Oh, so this is a crazy project. Basically, you're right. It was all about tech, and the screen, the circular platform underneath these sort of rotating ellipses is all LED. The back wall, some phenomenal company. I believe they were also out of Germany, strangely enough, and that was just really cool. It was like an immersive experience, I guess you could describe it.
Yep.
Where you can literally get in that room, and they throw the smoke up, and so that was super cool. Yeah, I mean that was something. They were using me as an artist to experiment, I think, with all this tech and capability, and we're going to revisit that next year with another second coming of that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that, because I think a lot of your work and most of your work is so applicable to this kind of technology.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know anything about the mapping. It's mapping, right? It's basically, and we've seen the mapping as it relates to